Alan Gryce is going now, and Robbie Mills in his wildly coloured Toyota there. That was a particularly slippery section of the hill, but now with the rain having gone away from the area at Baskerville, it's actually in very good condition now because the track's been washed clean, and I'd expect that with the damp atmosphere out here this afternoon and the cool conditions, we could see some very quick times put in by particularly Alan Gryce, also Jim Richards in the Monza, and at the other Monza in the hands of John Briggs. John Briggs, who was a little bit at sea in the wet conditions earlier today, and he was about 5 seconds slower than Jim Richards' practice time in similar cars. It's John Briggs on picture now, just going down the top straight, moving inside to pass Martin Sinclair, one of the Tasmanian drivers in a turbocharged six-cylinder Tirana, and now they're coming on to the downhill main straight at Baskerville.
We certainly had some fun and games this morning with quite a number of spin-outs in various divisions of cars. We mightn't see so much of a comedy of errors this afternoon, but certainly faster times in these very competitive cars. This is, in a way, to whet your appetite for tomorrow's telecast of actual race day, when round 8 of the Sports Sedan Championship will be held in 2 heats. We'll be bringing both those heats to you after the Masters Golf in Sydney tomorrow, sometime around 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So he's bettered his previous time for this afternoon by 0.3 of a second, taking it down to 56.4. Gryce was under the lap record in unofficial practice yesterday at around 54 seconds, something more than a second inside Edmondson's time.
The moment he's trying to pick a slot in the practice session when he can have as little traffic out there as possible. This enables him to pick his own line through the corners and not to have to worry about the other competitors getting round them. He had a bit of a problem with the Tirana there for about a quarter of the circuit, which can't have helped his times on this particular lap. There he goes, a little bit of a wiggle again. That car doesn't seem to be as stable as we've known it in the past. Although admittedly he is trying hard. If there's nothing in front,
Let's take the lead.
It's been an amazing drive by Richards after the spin.
well, it's interesting to note the tactics that Frank Gardner's used by putting the alloy heads on this car, which reduce the weight to give it better handling, but I understand the engine with these heads is a little bit down on power and torque. Now this is becoming apparent as Jim Richards reels in the Corvair.
Just caught a sight there of the car off the circuit on the right-hand side near Tilford Motors Corner, and it seemed to be the John Briggs Monza, so if it was, then John Briggs is out of this race. It looks as though he's got a problem with his right-hand front tyre, and this will, if Alan Gryce even finishes in second position, virtually will assure him of the 1979 championship.
Look at this now, right on his tail. It's a matter of brakes now into the end of the main straight when they get there, I would say. That's where Richards may try it. Up towards Hadley's. There is nothing in it with 4 laps to go.
Blue flags being waved as if Alan Gryce didn't know that Jim Richards was hard on his tail.
It hardly needs words to describe this duel as we see it here on the screen. Down towards TAA. This next quarter of a lap or half a lap is where I think it may well happen. Richards was closing up well on the brakes.
Alan Gryce was just able to get through TAA corner enough to not allow Jim Richards into his slipstream and robbed him of the advantage of the disturbed air down the quickest part of the circuit.
You're seeing 2 masters at work in these sports sedans. And this is now a game of brains as well as power. And they're both lapping now in 55.6 seconds. Still outside the record, but when you're running close like this, the times tend to be a little bit slower than they might be by a car by itself.
Jim Richards closing up on the Corvair into TAA corner and is actually a little bit quicker through that corner. Not as twitchy as he was in the early part of the race, and he's hoping to be able to get closer to the Corvair, but it seems that the Corvair has the legs on the Monza in the latter part of the straight.
Oh, very, very twitchy there by Gryce as he went into that corner. The tail went out, but he corrected it quickly enough to stop it developing into anything worse. So the pressure really is on Gryce. He's working like a demon in that cockpit. Again, a back marker now. Gryce can get that car between him and Richards. He could open up a gap, but no. The escort driver's kept well out of the way of both of them, done the best he could.
Richards running out of time.
Clipping the curb there at the bottom of the hill wouldn't have helped his run up the hill, and as can be seen, he's a little bit further back than he was on the previous lap. Now only about 1.5 laps to go in this tremendous high-speed duel for the 8th round of the Australian Sports Sedan Championship.
Just 200 RPMs down, going onto the straight can be all the difference. Once again, closing under brakes. And both of them getting very ragged now. Virtually anything could happen at this stage in the event. Last lap board, and again, a back marker there. Will he keep out of the way? Darrell Wilcox, I'm sure he will. Yes, he did. Beautiful driving by Darrell Wilcox to keep out of the way of these two big V8 monsters.
Jim Richards with the most important corner on the circuit, and he was able to get round cleanly that time and stay right with Corvair as they go up the hill. He closes under brakes. No doubt he'll close again as they go into TAA corner for the most important run down to innkeepers down the back straight.
This is his last chance. Through TAA. Gryce trying to close the door every which way. He knows this is the last chance too. Richards, I don't think, can make it. He'll keep trying to the flag, but right up there, close to the tail, but the Corvair must have it now. Brilliant drive by Alan Gryce, and an equally brilliant drive by Jim Richards.
Been lined up.
We pick up again though, Goins, car 11, coming through the big sweeper.
Yes, he's lost it, so he's very lucky. He's lost the boot lid. Yes, he has.
That's car 34 we saw a moment ago, minus the boot lid. Darrell Wilcox in 3rd position as we pick up our race leader Bruce Goins, being hotly pursued now by Leon Burton in car 770. Not much between them, and I think this could come as a little bit of a surprise to the Goins fans, who seem to think that on this particular circuit he's invincible. Back of the track there, just going into right of screen, was Murray Carter, but as we again pick up Leon Burton, he could be a driver to throw in a challenge to Goins. Tucked right in behind him over Winfield and into that extremely fast left-hand corner, all downhill from here. And there's not much passing room on this particular part of the track. From here on in, yes, you can see how on the fast back straight, Burton starts to ease up a little bit on Goins, but I believe he's going to be outbraked if he ever gets too close anyway. Goins obviously watching him in his mirrors. There's the gap between cars running in 1st and 2nd position. Goins leading in car 11 and Burton back in 2nd position in car 770. All that dust and you see going up into the air is cement dust, which has been laid down to cover up quite a bit of spilled oil.
It looks like someone's gone on the corner, and that's Martin Sinclair. 114, there he is, and he's just now coming back onto the circuit as he approaches the sweeping left-hander, approaching the starting straight, well behind the field. Some half a lap he lost with that little bit of an incident there on the sweeper. Back to the leaders.
Well, certainly in the opening 2.5 laps, we've had more action than you normally see in about 10 laps. Goins continually checking the mirrors to see if Burton is closing up, and quite obviously he's reasonably sure he can hold him at bay, but you can see Burton is catching him now through the slower sections of the Baskerville circuit, but down that long straight, in fact, it's Goins pulling away.
He seems to be able to get close enough on the bends, but sheer out-and-out speed is all with Goins, Jim.
Back in 3rd place, just going through the sweeper now, car 34 is Darrell Wilcox.
Wilcox is followed by Stephen Birtwistle, and behind Birtwistle would be Rogers, followed by Carter, and then would be Kerry Bailey.
This is another section as we pick up Burton, in which the car, the Gemini, seems to shine. That's on the uphill run and through the twisty sections, but on that long back straight, Goins' extra legs in the Celica seem to work wonders, and you'll see it happen now as Goins will plant the foot and pull right away from Burton.
Yes, he's all over that hump. He's really pulling away just a little bit closer, but not much. Not making much impression, and even leaving his braking to the very last minute. Goins going through quite safely at the end of 4. 3 laps to go.
Well, certainly Gowns knows he's in a motor race for a change. Invariably, he is able to scoot right away from the sort of opposition he's up against today. But as you can see, Burton is hanging on like a little terrier as they go through that right-hander and down through a wicked series of very tight S's, which brings them to a left-hander, which, as you can clearly see, is an uphill run. And on this section, Burton will pick Gowns back just that little bit.
And there's a tremendous dice going through the S-bends at the moment, at the bottom end of the field, at the bottom end of the S's, and it happens to be Rogers, Carter and Bailey. There's very little between the three of them, and there they are. They're at the rear end of the field and having a tremendous dice, and there's very little between them, and they're having a private battle all of their own, lying in something like 6th, 7th and 8th position. Meanwhile, out in the front, it's still Burton, and he's right out in front at the moment.
Here's the Gowns Celica, a beautifully controlled drift through the sweeper. This is a corner for the Brave.
Well, they've completed 5. There's the tail end, and those 3 very close together. With at the present moment, it's Carter out in front of Rogers, only by about half a length, and then about 2 lengths back to Bailey.
One of the old veterans of motor racing, Murray Carter, and the big Falcon leading across the finishing line with only 2 laps to go. That's the Falcon of Carter leading Rogers through the S's, and Rogers getting a bit desperate, looking for somewhere to get through, but that Falcon takes up so much room, and Murray Carter is such a top driver, he's not allowing him 1 inch. As we pick up our leaders again, and you see coming into the back straight Gowans, car 11 and the Celica, chased again by Burton, but once again the extra little bit of horsepower or performance or whatever it is under the bonnet tells the tale, and Gowans once again pulls right away. Burton doing a great job though to hang on and stay as close as he has for 6 laps, or coming up to 6 laps.
They've completed 6 laps and now coming up 1 lap to go. Only 1 lap to go, and there's very little between the 2, but oh, there's a tremendous dice in these 3 at the back, with Bailey coming through into the sweeper. There he is, Bailey on the inside. He's come inside Carter. He's very promptly followed by Rogers, but Carter's not going to let him. My word, what a tremendous dice at the back end of the field with these 3, with Bailey coming through and giving a tremendous little nudge to Carter and Rogers. But meanwhile, back at the ranch up towards the leaders, they're still in the same order as they go through. My word, that's exciting at the beginning and exciting at the end. Burton and Gowden's coming through very, very fast, and Leon Burton just can't quite make it as Gowden's come through, accelerates away, but Burton is not letting him get away on this occasion. He's coming up inside him, trying to catch up. There's only a quarter of a lap to go, only the sweeper to go as the 2 came into the corner. There's very little between them as it comes through. Gowden's is going to hold him off though, and yes, Gowden's is going through. Gowden's first, Burton second. Wilcox will go through into 3rd place. Into 4th will be Stephen Birtwistle, then into 5th. Oh, and a tremendous dice there sees Carter coming through. I think it's, yes, it looks like it's going to erupt into blow the motor as Woodward comes from the outside. Carter goes through, and Carter takes the next position, and I think Rogers is going to be lucky to make the pits before it explodes into flame.
So he can anticipate the flag a little.
He was a driver who at some stage was touted as a co-driver with Gary Rogers. And you may notice that his number's 134 and Gary Rogers is 34. They share the same racing number and a similar style of driving.
Look at Warwick Brown. A really brilliant move by Warwick Brown there.
Gary Rogers had won every start today, but from pole position then he settled back in 3rd place, and Warwick Brown flew past him.
So it's Garth Wixton leading from Warwick Brown, with Gary Rogers in 3rd place at this stage, but Darryl Wilcox right there going through on the inside of Gary Rogers and into 3rd place.
The lighter weight of the 6-cylinder sports sedan showing out as they accelerate up Roadways Hill and now down on Pumping Service Straight, with Garth Wixton in the lead in the other Roadways backed car. Warwick Brown throwing the Citizen Watch's car around with a great deal of verve, and he'll need to do so to stay ahead of Darryl Wilcox and Martin Sinclair in his green turbocharged Tirana.
Well, Garth is really pushing that car around here, and Warwick Brown is not prepared to let him go, and neither is Darryl Wilcox. In with a chance for a bit of fame and glory.
By the size of the driver in car number 51, it looks as though Brian Sampson may be mixing it with the sports sedans, rather, and has borrowed his car back from managing director of Recar, Alan Brown, who contested the last 2 Winfield 25s races in that car.
Well, Wilcox is giving Warwick Brown a fair bit of curry there and trying to go off on the inside, can't make it. The front end slips out, so he has to stick in behind. Up the hill, you can see he's giving away nothing to that Tirana A9X four-door. Wilcox's biggest problem is just getting round a crafty driver such as Warwick Brown with lots and lots of experience behind him.
In fourth position is Martin Sinclair with that turbocharged car, but really the interest in the race now is between Warwick Brown and Darrell Wilcox. They're not very far behind Garth Wigstone, and Martin Sinclair is very close in fourth position as Darrell Wilcox uses all the circuit and all the steering rack in his six-cylinder sports sedan in an effort to get past Warwick Brown. Finds a similar situation to that which existed between Garth Wigstone and Peter Brock in the earlier touring car race.
Oh, he's got Warwick Brown there right alongside as they came out of that corner and up the hill, but he hasn't got the legs. The production touring car had the measure of him, but of course Wilcox had the line into the left-hand corner, so he took it away.
And that leaves Warwick Brown with a problem in the form of Martin Sinclair now, although he's attacking back to take second position from Darrell Wilcox.
Was going to attempt the same trick of going on the inside, but decided against it. The brakes on the blue Tirana are just probably that much better with a lighter car, and he had no hope of outbraking it.
He's still keeping Darrell Wilcox very busy. Wilcox there into the first part of the S is able to open up a slight gap, and Sinclair in his turbocharged car catching Warwick Brown.
Well, Wilcox has made a little bit of a break and is now set out after Garth Wigstone. So that really it's two roadways cars, even though the Phillips are emblazoned on the side of the lead machine.
Garth Wigstone's time at the head of this field is 59.68 seconds, so the pace isn't quite as hot as it was in the touring car races, but still the action is on there with the six-cylinder sports sedans and Warwick Brown battling it out for the minor positions. It's a race that's 7 laps in duration, and therefore there's very little of it left for Sinclair to get past Brown.
Sinclair getting very serious behind Warwick Brown, was thinking about going inside. Warwick Brown cut him off, and it looks like that's the centre of the battle at the moment. Brown will have to watch him going up the hill because he could well get the boost in full as they accelerate away. But he couldn't tighten the corner sufficiently, so he's still a little behind, going for the inside spot on that corner. Brake locked, and he hit Brown, and Brown goes off. They both go off. That was bound to happen. Unfortunately, the experience of Martin Sinclair just wasn't quite up to it there, and he wasn't prepared to back down when Warwick Brown had the corner. So Brown gets going again as Martin Sinclair actually gets third place.
Wigstone still in the lead, driving fairly comfortably. Perhaps he's not. He's seen Darrell Wilcox behind him. He's flicked the tail of the roadways car out, Phillips Tirana, and now with the last lap of this combined race to be run, Darrell Wilcox has turned up the screws in his Tirana. He's ignoring the rev counter, no doubt, and he's looking for victory.
Well, he's filling Garth Wigstone's mirrors at the moment, and he's trying a very tight line there. Put it sideways to get inside, and he could well have it this time. He's going up on the inside, but no, Garth Wigstone had it. That was a very brave move by Wilcox. He tightened that apex up to try and get the inside line, and so that Garth Wigstone couldn't pull across on him. But Wigstone was too wily for him. Can he do it again here? No. Again, Wigstone is watching. He's sliding that car sideways, trying to keep it as tight as possible. Now he'll move over to the left-hand side of the road in the braking area. Wilcox is going for it. But no, again, Wigstone has it.
Wilcox keeping his car very tight. He's been able to keep inside, and therefore on the run out of the corner, he was in a good position, but just unable to pass Garth Wigstone, and that was a tremendous thing. But in fact, again, I'm in error, and this is the last lap of this event, so that was just a trailer for what must come in the last lap of this combined race. Darryl Wilcox using the ability of his car to point into the corners better, to nip inside the touring car. He found that he needed to be somewhat closer than he was last lap to get past under brakes into Innkeeper's Corner at the end of the main straight, and he'll be doing everything he can to get as close as possible approaching the braking area, and then endeavour to nip inside Garth Wigston.
Take it with me.
Finish line.
Well, this is a real battle for the lead in the combined production touring cars and sports sedan six-cylinder race. And in fact, Wilcox is too far behind. Besides that, Wigston decided he was going to go right in tight, and it looks very much as if Wigston has got it. Yes, across the line goes Garth Wigston ahead of Darryl Wilcox, and we'll have to wait for third place.